We have entered another week in the NBA, and for the Bulls, they are sitting pretty at the top of the Eastern Conference after their first 6 games with a record of 5-1 with only a 1-point loss to the Knicks. And we head into this week. The Bulls' schedule is only going to get more challenging in the next few weeks, really the month of November being their hardest schedule of games for the season. But in today's video, as I do every Monday of the regular season, I'll preview the Bulls' schedule of games for this week, things to be looking out for, and of course my record prediction, which I always end up getting wrong. Also a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, Thrive Fantasy, but more on that in a little bit. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing very well. So the Bulls have another 3-game schedule this week, starting tonight against the Celtics in Boston. Then they travel over to the city of brotherly love and face the Sixers. Then they're off for a couple days and take on the Sixers yet again on Saturday, but this time back at the United Center. So the streak of tough games continues for the Bulls after having just played against the Knicks and the Jazz. However, if you look at the standings, the Celtics haven't been playing all that well, and I said that before the start of the season. I actually don't expect the Celtics to make too much noise this season as far as being one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. It's early in the season, but a 2-4 start isn't the kickoff that they were looking for this season. And then, of course, the Sixers, yes, still a good team and will be one of the top teams in the East. The Ben Simmons saga continues as he remains out of the lineup, so let's go through these games one by one. So for tonight's game, I think it's important to remember that, even though the Celtics have been struggling, both in this season so far and of course last season, but it's to not take the Celtics lightly, who are going to be hungry and desperate for a win on their home court and not fall to 2-5. And despite the Celtics not really fitting all that well as a team, they do have 2 incredibly talented players in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown that average 25 points per game between them, and both players who have still really not even entered their primes yet. So the Celtics have strong defenders as well, and Marcus Smart, Robert Williams III. So the key for the Bulls in this game is to, 1, not get complacent and thinking that they'll run away with this game, but more importantly, keeping up their defensive intensity and not letting Tatum and Brown get hot from the floor, especially from deep. Both of those guys have been scoring well so far this season, but they have been very inefficient on offense, which is unusual for them. Tatum is only shooting 40% from the field and a dismal 27.3% from deep, who normally shoots near 40% from 3 for his career. And Jaylen Brown has also been struggling from outside at 32%. Keep these guys cold from behind the arc, keep them frustrated with their shooting, don't give them any confidence or momentum in getting their shooting back. And that starts with guys like Lonzo and Caruso, who have been great at guarding the perimeter. We'll also need big games on defense from guys like Javonte Green and Derrick Jones Jr. guarding Tatum, as DeRozan won't be as much of a threat on defense against Tatum. I do suspect that, like last game against the Jazz, we'll be seeing more minutes from Derrick Jones Jr. over Troy Brown Jr., as Derrick Jones has really shown to be a more versatile player on defense. The other key to this game for the Bulls is the matchup between Vucevic and Robert Williams III. Williams has slowly gotten better and better as an elite defender and rim protector thus far, and has shown that to be the case this season, currently leading the league in blocks per game at 1.2 steals as well, and also crashing the boards at nearly 10 rebounds per game. And unlike what we have seen in seasons past from him, Williams actually has shown, so far anyway, to be a decent player on offense, averaging over 10 points per game on 72% shooting from the field. For Vucevic, he has the size over Williams, who is only 6'9", but he doesn't have the hops that Williams has, and Williams will be all over Vucevic in the paint. The Bulls have to be utilizing Vucevic in the pick and pop, shooting from outside, as Williams tends to struggle getting out and guarding the perimeter. I know Vucevic hasn't been shooting all that well from outside. Well, really, he's kind of been struggling on offense in general so far this season, but you're not going to get the best looks in the paint when you're being guarded by either Williams or even Al Horford for that matter. And that's the other thing, actually, is that Al Horford has started off the season very strong for his age, considering how much he fell off last season. Believe it or not, he's averaging near 3.8 blocks per game and 1.3 steals per game. He's getting it all done on the defensive end, but also playing decent on offense as well, averaging 13 points per game and 10.5 rebounds. So similar to what the Bulls have kind of struggled with before, and going against teams with size. You've got Al Horford and Robert Williams, and so Vucevic is going to be in for a night on offense and trying to get his scoring going. I do suspect Tony Bradley will get a fair amount of playing time and, can hopefully bring that same kind of energy and momentum that we saw from him against the Jazz. We're also going to need that exact same thing from him against the Sixers with Joel Embiid, which I'll get into in a little bit. And then finally, this is a high-scoring team in the Celtics, currently 5th in the league in points per game, but they're also one of the worst teams in the league in terms of points allowed that they give up to their opponent. The Bulls have to take advantage of this and use their pace and speed in transition to put up points in a hurry and win this game in a shootout. The battle between Lavine and DeRozan and Tatum and Brown is going to be an epic one of high-octane offense coming from both teams, which again is why the Bulls defense is going to be so critical in this one, just as how critical it was in the game against the Jazz and the way the Bulls defended them on the perimeter. Now, before I get into the next 2 games against the Sixers, a quick word from our sponsor of this video, who has been very generous enough to not only sponsor the video, but also in matching your first deposit on the app all the way up to $100. Yes, that is a free $100 to you guys just for signing up with the app and making a deposit. You guys know I don't do sponsors unless I really believe in what I am promoting. And guys, this platform is actually incredible. Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy sports and esports app for player props. With Thrive, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. So Thrive's featured $50,000 guarantee contest is $20 to enter, and first place takes home $20,000. So use promo code BULLS when you sign up, and you'll receive a 100% instant first deposit match of up to $100. Download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store or Play Store, or by visiting their website at thrivefantasy.com, or a direct link with my code can be found in the description. So appreciate the support from you guys if you use my code, and shout out to Thrive Fantasy for sponsoring this video. But now let's get back into the content. So after the Bulls game tonight, we'll be taking on the Sixers in a back-to-back game on Wednesday, and then again on Saturday, the first game in Philly, and then back home in Chicago. Now for the Sixers, say what you will about them and all the drama that has surrounded this team with Ben Simmons, and as of the time of this recording anyway, Simmons still hasn't played with the Sixers and isn't scheduled to return, but that could very well change by the end of the week. But even without Simmons, this is still a strong team, and mainly because they have one of the best players in the league in Joel Embiid, who has always been a nightmare for the Bulls, really on both ends of the floor. And to be fair, that kind of goes for every team in the league. Vucevic is one of the better centers in the NBA and has the size to at least stand his ground against someone like Embiid. But he's still going to bully his way into the paint, and he's good enough of an outside shooter that you still have to step up to the perimeter to guard him. So Vucevic is going to have a hell of a night in the paint, as will Tony Bradley, who the hope is we'll see him come off the bench with the same kind of spark he had against the Jazz, embodying up Rudy Gobert. Now, aside from Embiid, the Sixers also have another star-level player at the 4 spot in Tobias Harris. So yet again, another team that is very strong and big in the front court, something the Bulls lack, especially after losing Patrick Williams. Both Harris and Embiid are very strong rebounders. Harris isn't as good of a defender like Embiid is, but one thing that has impressed me from Harris so far this season is he's really stepped it up in the playmaking department while Simmons has been out, and kind of acting as that point forward, averaging the most assists he's ever had in his career. The Sixers also have a strong outside shooter in Seth Curry, who so far is having one of the best seasons of his career in terms of his overall scoring and efficiency, averaging over 15 points per game on 61% shooting from 3, which is insane, but it's also only the first 6 games of the season. But Curry is obviously a guy who you have to be watching for at all times when he's on the court, and being all over him when he has the ball behind the 3-point line, similar to kind of his brother Steph. Then you have their young point guard Tyrese Maxey, who was their first-round pick last season, who has stepped up very nicely in Ben Simmons' absence. You have Matisse Thybulle, who is an incredible defender. The veteran Danny Green, who has done very well for them. You have Andre Drummond coming off the bench. Like, this is a fairly deep team despite not having their all-star player in Ben Simmons, and the record has shown that thus far, going 4-2 in the first 6 games. So this is going to be a hard-fought battle for the Bulls, and really it starts in that matchup that the Bulls have against Embiid. It's going to be a rough night for Vucevic, given he does struggle a bit on the defensive glass when he's going against strong offensive rebounders like Embiid. And of course, against centers who have the ability to kick it out to the perimeter and knock down a three. And this is where Tony Bradley comes in. Can he be that spark that we saw coming off the bench and handling his own against one of the best centers in the game, defensive centers anyway, and Rudy Gobert? Can he do that this time again against one of the best offensive centers in the game? Oh, and also who happens to be a solid defender as well. My biggest question mark for this game, and really I should say game since the Bulls will be taking them on twice, is who is going to be guarding Tobias Harris? Normally this would be the case where Patrick Williams guards their best scorer, but of course he's out and no one else on the team really matches up against Harris that well in terms of his size at that role. You'd have to think that Billy Donovan is going to play around a bit at that 4 spot, a bit to see who is the best matchup for Tobias Harris, rotating between guys like Javonte Green, Alize Johnson, and Derrick Jones Jr. Personally, I think Alize would be the best fit for that matchup because of his size and his ability to rebound better than the other two, which the Bulls are going to need against two very strong rebounders in Harris and Embiid. And then of course on the perimeter, it's going to be a big night for Lonzo Ball on defense because I imagine he'll be tasked with guarding Curry over Zach Lavine, despite Curry being a shooting guard. And that's the right call because Lonzo is such a good perimeter defender and you can't leave someone like Curry open. You can't have missed switch assignments or losing him while playing off the ball, which Lonzo is great at staying on top of. Now, so I don't make this video too long, obviously the keys to the second game against the Sixers are going to be very similar. Really the only difference for the Bulls is getting the crowd involved as much as you can since this game on Saturday will be at home. Bulls fans are fully behind this team and the electric atmosphere is something opposing teams will struggle against, so they need to use that to their advantage. As far as my predictions for this week, well, I always end up being wrong with these anyway, but my guess is the Bulls will go 2-1 this week, losing the game against the Sixers in Philly. I think the Bulls can beat the Celtics in Boston as long as they stick to their defensive assignments against Tatum and Brown. And the Sixers are a good team, but I think the Bulls are just as good as them, especially without Ben Simmons. And they can split the 2 games between them. But I want to know what you guys' predictions are for this week. Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to check out Thrive Fantasy. The link to that is in the description. And guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.